This is a good you know, you understand. You just gave like erections to people that are driving around. Like, this is, you play that song, and like Michigan alum this week are like, my son called me yesterday, and this is days after the national championship, and he said, "Dad," and I said, "Yeah." He says, "Let's just talk about the game." That is a quote, a direct quote. And he was just like 4 days later, was still like just living in the moment. And he was at the game. It wasn't like he has to, and he just was.
Well, I was going to say, you know what the biggest shock was to me? You weren't.
First of all, let's discuss this.
Right.
So I go to the Rose Bowl.
Right.
Which is,
by the way, Brad
craziest.
obviously went to Michigan. Right.
I went to Brad.
Right.
I graduated at the University of Michigan. My son is at Michigan, a senior right now.
Right.
So we are just, from all sides, just, we're in it. I take my boy to the Rose Bowl.
Right.
It's the greatest ending. When we win, beating Alabama against the greatest coach, and not just because he's retiring, but I said at the time, of all time in college football, I hug my son, and he truly, in my arms, starts crying.
Are you serious?
Sobbing like there's a death in the family.
Because I did see pictures of you guys at the Rose Bowl.
As we're hugging, and what I didn't post is, he's sobbing. He later says to me, "I don't know what was happening to my body." And my friend said, "You were having an orgasm out of your eyes. That's what you were having." Because he's such a sports nut. And so now I realized a month ago that if we beat Alabama, that we could be in the national championship on the night that I Am Ruth Bader Ginsburg launches.
Right.
Now, as a Michigan fan, I'm thinking to myself, we're not going to beat Alabama, okay? But then we beat Alabama, and now I'm like doing the math, and I'm thinking, can I find a friend to mooch their private jet and get back and cancel the New York event? And the truth was, the math just didn't work. I would have to fly. I did the math. I would get home at 4 a.m. and be on TV like a few hours later, not functioning. And I was like, and my wife said, the only thing that good that will come of it is you really embarrass yourself on TV and it sells some books. Like, that was the only pro. So my son goes to the game. We get him the craziest seats. He's in the second row on the 50-yard line. I can see where he's sitting. I'm like, Jonas, if we win, the confetti, you're going to be in the confetti cannon. Like, you're going to, and
who did he go with, by the way?
So he went with one of his best friends, Jack. All of his roommates, he has 5 best friends that that live with him. They all went to the game.
Did they really?
They all, because they give out a lot of student seats, so a bunch had student seats. They all went. And to be able to celebrate that with your boys just made me happy. I mean, obviously, I wished I could be there, but as I told him, what I'm going to do is pay for you to be there.
Because I will say this: the pictures of you and he at the Rose Bowl, like, they're awesome. That's
awesome.
An amazing moment.
It may be the greatest photo. I said to my wife, I want to frame this. I don't think we'll ever take a better photo. And my brother-in-law,
you can't even see him,
right? And I don't care about him because he's sobbing. But I'm so happy. And it was my brother-in-law who he was standing next to me. Obviously, you can't plan it, and he just took the picture.
Right.
And I was just like, oh, that forever. So win or lose, you get the photo. It doesn't matter. But we won, baby. It was the best. So good. Dad, let's just talk about the game.
And then what is I was looking on Instagram last night. What is the like, obviously we'll get to I Am Ruth Bader Ginsburg in a second, but there's obviously all of the I Am books. Who did the I Am a National Champion?
So this is the craziest thing. So my son's best friend, Jack,
right?
Okay, who he went with, he's sitting next to at the game. It's counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to win the game. So I immediately start saying, I'm going to post something. I truly open Twitter and to start writing, and a text comes through and it says, I am a national champion, where someone has taken one of our books and turned him into a Michigan person. And it's my son's best friend that when I say it hits 1, it comes through. And I'm like, this bastard had it ready. And by the way, as a Jew and a Michigan fan, that is bad juju. Like, you cannot prepare for the victory. I'm like, you would never do. So it comes. Now, here's the craziest part of the story. So I say to him, Jack, that was genius. Like, you're a mad genius. Thank you for that. Because I was just going to post some Michigan flag or some nonsense. And he says I'm like, you sent it at 1 second. That was amazing. And he said, actually, I sent it with 5 minutes to go. And it's just the crazy, you know, so many people
it just
sending
took
stuff
so
there.
long, sure.
And it came at the 1 second mark. If I would have gotten that 5 minutes to go, I would have been like, we're losing the game. Like, we're losing the game. The game is done. Just, I'm going to place bets on our loss right now. They're coming back with 4 touchdowns in the next 5 minutes. But that, I mean, he did it. And we were just like, the guy's a legend.
That's
like,
amazing.
Legend.
It was amazing. Amazing. All right. Let me get to I Am Ruth Bader Ginsburg. First of all, nice job. Very nice job. The book is great. The book is great. How did you get to her?
So of all, you know,
like, why do you get to her?
Yeah, that is a key question. Like, why is she talking to me? So when we do these books, when we did I Am Jane Goodall weighed in on her book. When we did I Am Dolly Parton, we had Dolly Parton, we had Oprah Winfrey. Billie Jean King spent 2 hours on the phone with me correcting the color of her sneakers in every match.
Did she
knew them.
really?
She's like, blue sneakers here, Brad. I'm like, okay, got that wrong.
So like the one where
here.
she played, why can't I think of his name?
Bobby Riggs.
Yeah,
Bobby Riggs.
So she knows. I mean, that's such a standout match.
Well, that's
that
a big one, but
know.
she knew like the minor ones. She was like, no.
She knew every shoe that she wore in every match.
Corrected them all. Corrected everyone. I was like, wow, 2 hours. There was a point where she said to me, she said,
how about where you said to her, I gotta go.
Right.
This is ridiculous.
No, she said, I wasn't at this point here. Can you make me here when I get this news? And I said, no offense, but I got that from your autobiography. And she said, yeah, but I was so busy back then, I couldn't proof my autobiography. So our kid's book is more accurate than her own autobiography. Like, I Am Billie Jean King, although her new autobiography has since corrected it, which is a very good book. So now, but Ruth Bader Ginsburg is the very first person who we've done who I knew before we were doing the book. Mm-hmm. And her daughter was one of my professors in law school. And Jane Ginsburg is like the premier copyright thinker in America by far, even back then. And I would be in her class and I'd be like, hypothetically, with my hand up, could you copyright? She's like, you can't copyright your book like that, Brad. Like she knew I was just in law school trying to get free legal advice.
Right.
But she was nice enough to me that she introduced her mom. I met her mom at events there, and we did events together. Like, we'd be at Columbia events where they would have like me and her as the speakers. And in fact, the first time when the 10th Justice, my first book came out, I was on, I invited, there was a book about the Supreme Court, 9 justices on the court.
Right. Obviously,
the 10th justices are the clerks, and that's what it was about. So I invited all the Supreme Court justices to my book party here in D.C. And because I was like, whatever, no one's going to come. I'm going to invite the justices. I know they're not going to come, but it's a good bit. And my phone rings the day before the party here in D.C., and I can see it's the early days of cell phones. I see Supreme Court comes up on the caller ID.
Shut up.
And I'm like, uh-oh, right? And I pick up the phone, and I go, hello? And I hear this sweet little old lady voice go, hi, Brad. It's Justice Ginsburg. And I'm like, hi, Justice Ginsburg. And she says,
are you serious?
I'm not making this up. And she says to me, I just want to let you know I won't be able to make your party tonight. And I'm thinking, I didn't think you were coming to the party. Right? And I say thank you, and I hang up the phone, and I turn to my wife, and I'm like, now who's going to DJ? Right? I'm just like, how? Like, who's going to do it now? But the great one is she and I were, one of her clerks here, one of my best friends in law school was one of her clerks, and when she got married, Rochelle asked myself and Justice Ginsburg to sign the wedding certificate at her wedding.
Right.
So we were the witnesses.
Right.
So we go in the back room, and my friend is in a beautiful white dress, and Justice Ginsburg is the first one, signs the wedding certificate, and I look at my friend and I'm like, do you really need me at this point? Like, really? Like, I think she's got it covered.
No,
like,
I got to have the Meltzer signature.
Right, no, this is what
it's
the
got to be
needs.
official.
Right. And so I know her. My one regret is I never got to tell her we were doing a book about her. That's the one thing that I never did. But our daughter obviously helped us with the book and helped us get so many of the details.
Now, I did want to ask, because also there's a granddaughter, as well. What is it? Is it
Clara?
Clara, right? And I want to say that I'm sitting in here earlier this week, and I look up, and there's monitors all over the place, and I saw you on the Today Show talking about the book, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. I don't know who was with Brad, but he brought someone, and it was Clara, the granddaughter.
The granddaughter, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, came on the show with me.
Right. So is she outside right now?
She's everywhere I go. Yes. No, I would love it. She was so sweet. I mean, that's the thing is she didn't have to come. And I said, because I said to Justice Ginsburg's daughter, I said, you want to come on the show with me? And she was like, that's just not my thing. She's like an academic and really more introverted. And I said to Clara, I'm like, your mom would hate this show. She's like, she'd hate this, doing this, But she says, why don't you take Clara, who was in the documentary that we all saw? And Clara is just the loveliest, sweetest woman. She, in fact, when we did the interview, she was wearing Justice Ginsburg's clothes. She wears her, like, to honor her. She wore it to the interview. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how sweet and thoughtful is that? And she loves the book and just wanted to come out and represent. And I was like, I love the fact that you love this book. And she said, I learned stuff about my grandmother I didn't know when she was a kid.
That's impressive.
And that was the best part. That was the part where I was like, that makes my day. Like that, it's one thing to be like, oh, that's a cute picture and Chris drew a beautiful Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It's another thing when her granddaughter's like, you honor my grandmother in ways I never knew, and now I feel closer to her. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. In a kid's book.
In a kid's book, right. I mean, and we've had, like, John Lewis said to us he loved our Rosa Parks book. He proofed our Dr. King book, advised us on it. And that was obviously super meaningful because he marched with Dr. King.
Yeah, right.
But this was like, it's, she says, you didn't hear it, on Good Morning America. I mean, on the Today Show, she said, and then Bubby said this. And I'm like, we just got the word Bubby on the Today Show for our book. Like, I have nothing left to accomplish in life. Like, we just called RBG Bubby.
So, two things to get into the book. Number one, I was reading that, so, like, people write in, they're like, oh, you should do this one, you should do this one. Like, this person's a hero, this person's a hero. That she was the most requested person by not just adults, by kids.
Number one. Like
by kids.
For a while, it was Frida Kahlo, so we did the Frida Kahlo book. And then it was Asian kids were writing to us saying, hey, we've seen you did black people, white people, Native Americans, everything. Where's one that looks like me? And I hear those kids. Like, that means a lot to me. So we did I Am Pei. And then the number one for the last year and a half. And it's so weird how these things happen because you'd think that would happen when she dies. But it's just, for some reason, something's in the ether. You don't know what's going to happen in Israel. This is a year and a half ago when we do this book.
Right.
And she's the number one. And kids, by the way, you said requested. They don't make requests. Kids are little terrorists. They make demands. Like, their letters are like, make this book, monkey. Like, let's go. But number one. And in fact, if you saw on the Today Show, we gave them letters of kids just writing saying, can you make RBG? Can you make Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Like, that's what they wanted. And at this point, we do listen to them. And I never could anticipate where the world's going to be. We put a page in there about anti-Semitism. I don't know that that's going to be suddenly a really important page to people.
Sure.
Because of what's happening in Israel. And sometimes the universe just tells you what
Well, that's
you
what
need.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
The way that, like, I think it's awesome that, like, for kids, like, if you said adults wrote and were like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I get it. And she obviously not just part of the Supreme Court, but she became like a kind of like a big pop culture.
Yeah, she's the icon, of course.
Sure. But to hear that kids were doing it, that surprised me. And then you're right. You look at everything going on in the world and you're like, boy, and I mean, you wish the timing was horrible, right?
Right, you do.
Unfortunately, the timing is amazing.
And that's what always, and it's so funny because it's what happens. You don't get the heroes you want. You get the heroes you need. It just happens. Like, I can't even explain like why it happens, but over and over we've seen it. And even when we were doing John Lewis, like, Dr. King's message is a beautiful message, still, of course, the beautiful message. But at some point, you're just like, I want to teach kids a little, it was time for also John Lewis, how to teach kids to get in good trouble. And Black Lives Matter is right there. And you're like, wow, look at how these things work out together. And for whatever reason, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you would think, and I didn't want to do her early on in the series because I knew her and I felt like it was a little, not that, she had any chance of being a Nepo baby. I think she's Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but it felt like a little too like, am I doing this because I know her and my bias in there? And it's just the perfect timing for her right now.
But the other thing that's great about it is, and I don't know if I'm in the minority or the majority, but going into it, here's everything I knew about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's a Supreme Court justice. She's got like that fun workout program, yes. And she wears like the collar thing. Like that's like a big deal. The end. Like I don't know. I couldn't have told you anything about the life and upbringing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I like that you keep calling her Ruth Gator.
I know, because I can't say the
because Chris
goddamn thing.
Eliopoulos is going to draw a Gator version of her. Like, there's not a question by the end of this. You're going to get a Gator version of Ruth Gator Ginsburg.
But start with her name. If there weren't so many Jones in her kindergarten, she'd be Joan Ginsburg.
First of all, I literally was like, okay, so let's talk about this. The woman's name is not Ruth, it's Joan. And there were like 15 Jones in her kindergarten class, and they're like, there was once another Brad, and one of us had to be Brad and one of us had to be Bradley. But there are so many Jones in this poor woman's class that they're like, nah, your name's Ruth now. Like, they're just like, forget it. We're just changing. We're going to your middle name and you're done. And I love that. I was like, that is going in the book because it's just so crazy because she's such an icon by her name.
Right.
And it's not
even
her
who she
name.
is.
It's the best part. I'm like, and that's me when I'm researching. I'm just like, oh, this is badass. And people are like, did you follow the scholarly, things and that she wrote about? I'm like, no, I just liked that she didn't have her name. Like, that's where I go with.
But you learn, like, as a little girl, so she's growing up in Brooklyn. First of all, and the other thing that you would think is, she went to, as you learn in the book, or I learned in the book, I didn't know, like, she goes to 2 different law schools. Like, I mean, like, the amount of, like, studying she did is like way overboard.
Yeah, no.
Like, she really poured it on.
She's extra. She's always extra. I mean, but to me, it's when she's a kid, right? Like, we think of her as a serious Supreme Court justice.
Oh, but can I finish that real quick? Her parents aren't. And
right.
I love that.
I
love that. Her parents aren't brainiacs. Her parents aren't like, oh, we're the smartest people, and she's kind of forced into this world of academia. Her parents aren't stupid, obviously, but her parents aren't these, like, well-educated brainiacs.
Listen, that's what I loved is it's very much like my family. I'm the first in my family to go to a 4-year college. Like, me getting out and going to college was a miracle. The talk my dad gave me, and he said, if you get straight C's, you'll still always do better than I did. That was like his academic talk. And he meant it like Ruth Bader Ginsburg got a better pep talk than I did. Right? So she's like this little girl, and she, we think of her as so serious, but she just wanted to, like, have adventures. Like, she wanted to play tag and climb trees and run around, but it's a time when girls aren't supposed to do that. Like, you can't do that. You're a girl. Girls can't do that. And it's her mother who breaks that stereotype, right? Her mom is the one who says, we're going to the library every Friday afternoon. You can pick out 5 books, Ruth. Pick your 5. And the ones she loves among the best are real people. Amelia Earhart, Harriet Tubman. She later likes Anne Frank as she gets older. But it's her mom in that moment teaches her life's great lesson, right? There's nothing that a girl can't do.
Right.
And I want my daughter to have that lesson. I want my sons to have that lesson. And for me, that's the core of Ruth Bader Ginsburg in that moment is her, when she's a little girl, instead of birthday parties, her mother takes her to the local Jewish orphanage and they give away ice cream. You know what would happen if I canceled my daughter's birthday party and said we're going to do something nice for people? Like, I would be dead. There would be like, I would like be like, Corey, hide the knives. Like, I'd be like, I mean, my daughter would flip. And that's what she does. And what she learns is that's how you make change.
Right.
You make change by making it yourself. And that's not a lesson Ruth Bader Ginsburg learns in law school or on the Supreme Court. It's a lesson from her mom.
Right.
And she, of course, uses the law to make change. And that's all the books are to us. It's like, that's our way of trying to put some good in the universe. We use books. She obviously uses the law to a great, far better success than we do. But I love the fact that that's the lesson my mom gave me. It's the same lesson that Ruth gets from her mom, and that's the beautiful part of her story.
It's funny because the 2 times that I groaned reading the book were both of those. I'd be like, I got home from school on a Friday and I got to go to the library.
You're like, no, mom sucks.
And then the other one is on my birthday.
On my birthday, we're going to go help people.
Orphanage.
Right.
Come on.
I love that you're like, those kids aren't orphans. He looks fat. He doesn't need ice cream. I love that that's the way you see this.
But the other thing is, so she's reading about all these women that are heroes, but and at the time she probably doesn't realize, like you mentioned, whether it's Harriet Tubman or Amelia Earhart, these are all girls that are doing things that, quote, girls aren't supposed to do. And just like you said, she's doing the same thing. Like, she's playing stoop ball in the middle of Brooklyn, which are all boys. She's climbing trees, which are all boys. Like, she's doing the kid version of what Amelia Earhart did, of building the ramps in her backyard. She's doing all the same stuff.
Always. And that's the story, right? If you tell me who you are when you're a kid, I'll show you who you are. Like, she wants to do woodworking when she's a kid. And they're like, girls don't do woodworking. You got to go to sewing class. And they put her in sewing class, and she's like, this sucks. Like, they make her sew her own graduation gown, and it's terrible, right? It's a horrible. And she says in her, she's like, it's a giant mess. Like, arms are too long, and it doesn't fit her in any way. But they're like, you're a girl, you can do it. And I love the fact that all this serious, feminist stuff that we label and throw on Ruth Bader Ginsburg just comes out of her own need as a kid to be like, no, I don't want to be the way you want me to be. Right. I'm not going to be the way you're going to force me to be. And if you're treating and saying boys can do one thing and girls can do another, you're being unfair to both.
Right.
And that is the message forever. Although I'm a little disappointed that you didn't call out the fact that we did tikkun olam in the book. The repairing the world. Like, we got the Jewish, we brought all the Jew in this one. Like, this book will make you kosher.
But I was going to say, she learns two things. She learns about the non-equality between men and women, but also, and you point out, and it doesn't get used a lot in the book, but it does get highlighted in the book very effectively, that there are people who hate her just because she's a Jew.
Well, that's the thing. So she goes to Harvard Law School.
Right.
Okay. There's so few women in the class, period. I think there's like 10 or less, that there's no girls' bathroom. There is no girls' bathroom. And by the way, when she gets to the Supreme Court, in the robing room, there's no women's bathroom there.
Right.
Like, that's how much they're just not used to having them. So then she goes to Columbia, which is where I went, and they tell you when you come to Columbia, like, it's the most famous slum. So you know the stories. They added a women's bathroom for her there.
Did they really?
They really did. They added one for her. And then the beautiful part is she makes law review at Harvard, makes law review at Columbia. Like, she's just a killer. She's a laser, right? And what I love about her is, even when she gets to the Supreme Court, guess what else they add? And Sandra Day O'Connor's there, by the way. And they don't add it for Sandra Day O'Connor. Ruth Bader Ginsburg comes, and there's a woman's bathroom added, period. She's like, she's coming, bring the bathroom. Like, right? Like, she's got it.
By the way, in hindsight, how pissed was Sandra Day O'Connor?
Oh, I'd be so pissed.
I got nothing?
I'd be like, I'm here for a while. Yeah. And I'm going, like, upstairs to go pee, and, like, this woman comes, and suddenly you're redoing the plumbing in the place. Spectacular flex.
But you know, the other thing that's crazy though is you talk about like her mom, like taking her to the orphanage and the books, and what a huge impact. Her mom drops dead when she's 17 years old.
17 years old, loses
she's
her
a
mom.
kid, and her mom dies.
And by the way, and then she takes over everything.
Yes.
Right? Like, you're 17 years old, and it's hard enough. Like, I lost my mom, but I was in my 30s. Like, 17 years old, you're like, that could devastate you forever. Like, you're not going forward. And then she's playing the role of daughter, and she's playing the role of mom. And when she gets to law school, she's playing the role of, not only does she go to law school, she takes care of her husband when she's sick and has cancer, right? Taking care of it and doing all these things at once. And when she graduates, like you were saying, it's not that she doesn't get the job just because she's a woman. They're like, we're not hiring women. We're not hiring Jews. We're not hiring whatever you are. We're not hiring. And it's like all these strikes against her, and she's still going. In fact, she goes abroad. And when she's abroad, that's where she sees a female judge for the first time. And she's like, huh. Look at that. She learns the word for, like, trailblazer in another language, and is like, huh, look at that. And suddenly you're like, we all know in life there's someone who unlocks that thing in us, that, whether it's someone who says you're good at something for the first time, or says you can do this for the first time, or even just shows you it's possible. And she doesn't learn that here.
Right.
The only reason she gets a shot is because one of her professors says to a judge, trust me, this is the killer. And
so, I love this. I love to find the point in the book where if X doesn't happen,
that's the moment.
The script gets flipped.
Yep.
Who is that guy?
Yeah, so I even put his name in the book because I was like, this guy deserves respect. And we drew him, Gerald Gunther. And I remember when I was I think he was one of the guys who wrote one of our case books, I remember at the time. But I was like, this guy, because we could just show him. But I was like, we put a big arrow to him and said, give this guy the love.
Right.
This is the one guy who stood up when no one was standing up for women and said to another judge, come on, this is the one. Now, I'll tell you about this page. So this is the page where Ruth Bader Ginsburg says, hands the judge a memo and says, and the judge says, oh, thanks, your memo is beautiful. So this is a great backstory. So on this page, when I hand the book to Ruth Bader Ginsburg's daughter, I'm like, I said, Professor Ginsburg, just tell me what you think of the book. She's like, it's a disaster. And I'm like, it's a disaster? Right? Like a disaster? Like, I mean, and so she comes back with some edits, and the disaster that I get to is I wrote on this page, it says, I wrote, Ruth, this brief is incredible. And she writes to me, Brad, do you remember anything about the law? We don't call them briefs, we call them memos. And I'm like, that is a disaster. That is truly a disaster. That is, I mean, I know suddenly I was 22 years old again in law school. Like, she's forever my professor. I was just like, I cannot. So that page forever just strikes terror into my heart. That Corey was like, that's the hardest page. I'm like, I'll never, ever come down from that page.
You know, and a couple of other things that I really like learning about her. So as a lawyer, obviously she's working her way up and she's doing things and she's, becoming very successful as a lawyer. She ends up arguing 6 cases in front of the Supreme Court before she's ever a justice or anything. She wins 5, loses 1.
Killer.
What is the one?
I don't know what the one is. That's a good one. I wonder if anyone in D.C. possibly knows. Now every lawyer is going to call me and be like, I know the one. The thing that I love is
wait, can I guess?
Yeah,
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Is it when she talks about her success on the Supreme Court?
No, it's before that. No, it's that she goes before she even gets there. They say to her, we want you to teach a class on women in the law. So she goes and reads every case that has a woman in it and deals with women's rights. And she's like, it didn't take me long because there aren't that many.
Right.
I just love anyone who's like, well, if I'm going to teach a class, I'm going to read everything.
Right.
Like, that's just like everything. I'm like, I would just be like, well, just give me the highlights. I'll be okay. But she's like, I'm going to read everything there is. And then there's like, oh, there's not that much. Let's make it. And that's how it happens. Like, the change happens because she looks at it and says, and this is why she's the real killer, is she could easily be, the feminist person that, again, we all project onto her, but she doesn't just take cases where it's just like unfair to a woman. She finds a case that says, if you're a woman and you take care of your parents, the government will give you X amount of money to take care of them. But if you're a man and you take care of your parents, you don't get anything.
Right.
And she's like, that's unfair too. And she's so smart because she knows all the hypocrisy that's going to happen, right? But she knows, all the male judges are going to say like, well, that female case, and we're going to find some way around it. But when you say it's unfair to the man, no one can say a word. And she's like, here's my case, early case.
Right.
Eat this, right? And she wins. And that's why she's the laser, because she's not fighting just for women. She's fighting for everyone. And that's why she's, to me, confirmed 99-1.
Right.
And I said to Corey, my wife, when I was writing this book, I was like, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, to my surprise, I didn't know this going in. I said, she deserves a book, an I Am book, before, and even if she was never a Supreme Court justice. Like, she's that much of a badass, just as a lawyer, fighting in the ACLU, fighting for everyone's rights, changing the laws. Forget about what she does, with women's rights when she gets on the court, but she deserves it for the fight that comes all before it.
Right. Well, the part that I was going to guess, and I'm glad it's in the book, is she talks about how now she's a Supreme Court justice and people bring in these cases and they hear them. She goes, I have lost way more than I've won. But she talks about writing the dissent, not because it's not going to change anything now, but I'm writing for the future. That somewhere down the road, and she's like, I've lost so much more than it's not even close. But I want to write the dissent because somewhere down the road, it's going to make a difference.
And what she's really saying is, because somewhere down the road, everyone's going to realize I'm right. Right? The balls. Like, that is awesome. I love the fact that, and you know what? She's right over and over. Like, there's, the Ledbetter Act, like they bring in and they talk about, payment to women and the Congress doesn't do it right and they strike down the law. She writes dissent. And then later they pass the act that her dissent represents. They're like, she's right. Like, we got to make that law. And I love the fact that she is not seeing it now, but she's seen, and again, the best lawyers, the lawyers who in law school, I would look at, I knew back then, you could tell who was playing just, 5-dimensional chess, she's not playing now. She's playing the long game.
Right.
And boy, it's so good to teach your kids that, like, you can get your butt kicked right now. You can be, knocked down over and over again, but not only get back up, but keep swinging. And she's just swinging long term. Obviously, the end is we all wish it has a different ending, but my gosh, I just love the fight in this woman.
And like, obviously her daughter and her granddaughter, do you know, like, have the other justices read it?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's a good. I know one that I'm gonna ask. Although I know one is gonna read it. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you off the air who it is.
You know, one justice is gonna read it.
Because you told me.
I told you?
No, the justice told me.
I was like, what did I tell you?
Elliot told me that one of the justices were going to read it. Yeah. Elliot told me Scalia was going to read it. He's dead, but he's going to read it. But you know what I love? The one thing I couldn't put in the book that I really
a dead one too.
Right? Even the dead will read I Am Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But this is the one thing I couldn't put in the book is her best friend on the court was Justice Scalia, who's
right?
Obviously polar opposite, and there's no politics in our book, right? We put in the back of the book Sandra Day O'Connor's there, and Amy Coney Barrett's there, and Ketanji Brown Jackson there. We put everybody in, but what I love is her best friend was Scalia, who is the exact opposite, and the reason they're friends is because he knows she's the smart one. Like they're the smartest ones there at that time,
right?
And they're like, I totally disagree with you, but I respect that you are playing a different game than everybody else is. And I love that. I didn't know how to put that in, be like, yeah, she's the smartest and suck it, everyone, but like, she's just the one. She's the killer.
All right, let me do this. Let me take a quick break. I Am Ruth Bader Ginsburg is out now, part of the Ordinary People Change the World. That is available now. You can meet Brad tonight. Barnes & Noble in Tyson's at 6 o'clock. We'll get into that in a second. Quick break. It's Elliot in the Morning.
Elliot in the Morning.
Brad Meltzer is with us. He has I Am Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That is out and available now. You can see Brad Meltzer tonight, 6 o'clock, Barnes & Noble in Tyson's with a very special guest.
There she is, baby. I know it. I had good money you were going to play the Wonder Woman theme, but playing Rise Up is even better. The amazing Linda Carter is going to be joining us. If you want to see,
Here we go.
If you want to see 500 Gen Xers faint, wait till Linda Carter walks out at Tyson's Corner tonight with me, because you're truly gonna see people clutching action figures to their chest having heart attacks. I mean, it is just. I mean, it is so. In fact, I had dinner with her. We did an event at the White House for Halloween. They had us reading to military families there, and she said, and Linda Carter said to me, "I want to meet you for dinner." And I was like, my sister was like,
I'm orgasming through my eyes.
Through my eye. What's happening to my body? And so my sister said to me, "You're gonna pass out." Like she said to me, "You're gonna pass out," and that's it. And so. And I will say, and I told Linda the story. The Uber comes, and it's an old Mercury that's my dead father's old car. No Uber is a Mercury. It doesn't happen anymore. So I'm like, it's a little weird. So I get in the car.
Had you ever met her before?
I never met her face to face. No,
right.
I never met her.
All you know is you're doing this event at the White House with her, and the night before you're having dinner.
Right. I mean, she's not even coming to the event. I'm at the White House. She knows I'm in town, and she knows we're going to do the event at Tyson's. She's like, let's get together.
Okay,
so,
I gotcha.
So now I get in the car, and on the radio, the DJ says, back in 1976, this was the #1 song. And it's a Barbra Streisand song. My mother, no one loved Barbra Streisand more than my mother. Before she died, I sent it to a Barbra Streisand concert. Her #1 ever. Barbra Streisand is not played on the radio. You don't hear Barbra. And now I text my wife and I'm like, I think I died and this is how I'm going to go. Like, I'm like in my dad's car and I'm going to the white light. And I get to the restaurant here in DC and I'm obviously so focused that I'm sitting across from Wonder Woman herself. Okay? So focused that I am that the waiter, when it's done, we take a picture together and the guy next to me offers to take a picture. I'm like, I got it. We take the picture. And the waiter says to me, by the way, did you see who you were sitting back to back to the whole time? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he says, Michelle Obama. And I'm like, why don't you tell me that? And he says, well, I thought you knew because the person that offered to take your picture had the little thing in his ear. I'm like, that was the Secret Service. Like, my job is to notice these things. And I could see nothing. I could see nothing but the beautiful, amazing Linda Carter, who is the nicest person in the whole world. And she's laughing at me, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm just going to embarrass myself. But she's so kind. She's coming tonight for I Am Wonder Woman and RBG.
The go back to dinner though.
Yes.
Do you even remember, like, obviously you don't know Michelle Obama sitting behind you, but do you even remember dinner? I
remember, I was just trying to think what I ate. I remember one of the things I ate. I don't know the name of the restaurant anymore. It's gone. Like nothing. And it was a great new restaurant, like a hot place. Obviously, Michelle Obama and Linda Carter there. Yeah, no. I mean, it was definitely this close to passing out. Like it was no, she's a sweetheart though.
But I want there to be something where it's like it was great and I'm eating this, and I'm going to pass out. But I'll tell you what, eats with her mouth open. Like she's just chewing it. It's like
you want that, but nope. She's just the greatest. She's the greatest. That's the thing, is you don't get to be Wonder Woman without being the great one. So she actually, right before New Year, she came to Florida, and my wife and I went to dinner with her again, and one of her best friends is very kind and was like Miss, I figured it's Tennessee or somewhere, and Linda Carter was Miss Arizona, and my wife said, "Oh, you met when you were both competing against each other. Oh, I can't believe you're still friends after all these years," and and that she obviously did feel bad when you lost, and she's like, "Honey, we all knew she was going to win." Like, if you're Wonder Woman, like every woman in that competition is like, yeah, that's her. Why am I here? Like it's like at the Oscars when you're like against Oppenheimer, you're like, I know.
So so for tonight, like it was just like you just called her and were like, "Hey, will you do this event?"
Yeah.
with me?
So because this is the 10-year anniversary of the Ordinary People Change the World.
How crazy is that?
Crazy. I mean, I did these books when my kids were 5 and 8. And one's in college now.
Right.
I mean, and there was a kid who came up to us the other day, 2 nights ago, and said, "I grew up on your books." I've never felt so old,
right,
or so proud in a moment than hearing that. And 10 years ago we started this.
But you know what's crazy though is I think back to like we met you when you were doing novels, like when you were doing the
when we
thrillers.
had no kid, right? We were saying before, no kids, just writing thrillers, murdering people all day long, happy as could be, all the time in the world. And then we have these kids, and we're 7 million books, and Elliot, I can't change adults' minds. It's just hard. But we have spent 10 years with 7 million books arming a generation of kids with lessons of kindness and compassion and perseverance. And I'll take our odds. Like I'm happy with that.
What was I can't even remember, what was the first one?
So we did, when I went into the publisher, I said, they said, "Oh, it's so cute, Brad. You want to do I'm Amelia Earhart and I'm Abraham Lincoln, inspire people's kids out there and your kids out there. 2 books, that's adorable." And I said to them that day, I said, no, I want to do 100 books.
Right.
I want to build a library. I'm a third of the way there. And it took me 10 years, but we're 32 books in.
When those two, see, I can appreciate that was your mindset, because I remember going like, this is cool. Like, you know what? Good for Brad. And in the back of my head, I'm going like, that's taking a leap, because you're not a kid's author at that point. You're writing thrillers and doing a great job with them, but you're not a kid's author doing historical. I mean, listen, anybody who read your stuff knows you do your research. Like, I'm not taking that away from you, but you're not doing kids' books.
My publisher, I went to my publisher and said, "Listen, I want to do these kids' books. If you don't like them, just be honest." And I know you kind of have to sometimes service people who they write a lot of thrillers for you. You feel the need, you got to publish their stuff. I'm like, don't do that with me. If you don't like it, don't take the book. And they're like, "Okay, we don't like it." I'm like, "What do you mean you don't like it?" I'm like, "These are great books. These are fantastic books." And they rejected our books. And then they came back and were like, "We'd like to do them." And I'm like, no. And so we stayed with the new publisher that took us on. I mean, and obviously they crushed it. They were like, "We have something here that we love and built," and it was amazing. But I never thought we were going to get.
Mean, in my head, you'd get 10 years. Like, it's one thing to go, I'm going to do 100 of these,
right? But then that's just like.
But that's easy to say.
100%. I do not think I ever could have anticipated what a gift I was giving myself when we were doing. I thought myself, I'm going to do these cute books for my kids. Maybe people will buy them, maybe they won't, but I'll have something to give my kids. When I look now, like when we started and people wanted to collect them all, my friend was like, "It was really fun to collect them all when you had 10. It's really expensive to collect all 32 now, right?" But
you know what?
But people
Thank
buy
you.
them all.
Thank you. No, one of our friends is having a kid. What does Jackie do? She buys the whole goddamn library.
That's why we love Jackie.
I was like, "Jack, I get a free copy every time one comes
time.
They're stacked up in the office. Just give them those."
Right.
I'm not going to go back.
They're not going to know. Right? I read them already. But
that's amazing. People are buying the whole library.
I know, and they donate them to their schools, to their churches, their synagogues, like to anywhere you can find people reading. I love that. Children's hospitals. I see people with it's amazing. But so for this tour, when it was the 10-year anniversary, we were like, we should do something special. Like, it's great to do it, but we're like, you know what? Let's ask Linda Carter to come for I Am Wonder Woman, which we're obviously doing tonight in Tyson's. But next Friday, we're doing I Am Temple Grandin with Temple Grandin in Colorado. She's coming to the event.
How awesome is that?
My phone rang yesterday, and I was in between interviews, and my phone lit up, and it was Temple Grandin. I see Temple Grandin light up, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And she's, what I love about her is that, obviously she's our first autistic hero that we've done. She's an amazing inspiration. And when she corrected her book, nobody corrected the mistakes faster than she did. Like there was no, I'm like, do you like yourself as a cartoon character? Yes. That's it. And so we're going to have so much fun. And Chris is so excited to meet her. He's going to have her, Temple Grandin, draw Temple Grandin, while he's there.
Dude, that's awesome.
And Chris Eliopoulos is coming tonight also.
Right?
So it's me and it's Chris and it's Linda Carter. It's going to be nerd heaven. Chris is definitely passing out, by the way. There's no question Chris is going to pass out.
No, but go back to Temple, or you talk about these books. I love Jackie Robinson, right? So that one stands out. And I didn't know it. I didn't know anything about Temple Grandin. I didn't know that. But when that book comes out, you could tell me it's a year ago, 2 years ago. I don't remember exactly how long ago. But you read that one and you go, how was that one not at the beginning?
Yeah,
you read that, you go
so
oh my
awesome.
God.
And again, you know how many people, have come to our events in tears with that Temple Grandin book, saying thank you for teaching my kids it's okay and beautiful to be different.
Right.
And we've had people who they're on the spectrum, their kids are on the spectrum, they come to these events and they're sobbing, saying thank you for this book and featuring a hero who's like me and my kid. And again, that's always the goal, but when you see that person up close, there's this little boy who's my pen pal now, who's the sweetest kid in the world, and he's on the spectrum, and from the start has always been begging for are you going to do anyone who has autism?
Where's my book?
And he lives in Chicago, and he came to the event when I was in Chicago. I knew his mom would bring him, and I waited to announce the Temple Grandin book to when they were there. And I watched her face when I said the next book's going to be I Am Temple Grandin, and she's sobbing.
Wow.
Sobbing. And she comes up after and she's like, and I said, I was waiting to tell you. And it's such, again, the gift that we never thought we were giving ourselves. That's the craziest part of it. So I love the fact that, Linda Carter's here. Jackie Robinson's son and grandson were reading the book on Jackie Robinson Day.
Yeah, no, that's crazy.
That's just where
crazy.
I'm like, okay, I can't get my head around. So, and obviously we went to the White House twice for these books now. The presidents, we've had multiple presidents giving them to their grandkids. And we had, someone told me that Victoria Beckham gives them as gifts, and all these famous people give them gifts. And I'm just I read that in Glamour, I'm just what? And of course my daughter's this is a mistake. She's never going to let me have the moment because she thinks Victoria Beckham's cool. But, all these super cool famous people use the books as gifts and things like that. And I'm again, for me, it's just I can't believe that we got 10 years into this run.
Are you doing this tonight? You dressed up as Ruth Bader Ginsburg for the
thought
release.
About it for tonight.
Not as Ruth. You got to go dressed as Wonder Woman.
I thought about that too. I did think about it. I'm going to tell you. Here's the only thing. By the way, my friend literally said to me, "If you do it, I'll give you $100." He said,
"I'll double it."
Right. But what I said, what I realized is, I want the picture to be nice. And if I'm wearing the Wonder Woman outfit, it's just going to be horror. It's going to be nerds will pass out, but it'll be from horror and pain and fear. It'll be a completely opposite thing that we're evoking. But make no mistake, 100, ask Corey, you can text her right now, thought about it, and she's like, don't do it. Because I was and by the way, not new school Wonder Woman, old school Wonder Woman. I was coming with the eagle and the whole thing and the glitter pants. It was going to be maybe with the skateboard even.
All right, I got to go 3 things really quickly. Have you said who's after Ruth?
Yeah, let's talk about it. So the publisher said I'm not supposed to say anything.
That's right. Nobody's listening.
But the publisher's not here right now. No, we're doing for the Olympics. We're doing Jesse Owens.
Are you really?
Yeah. So
dude, that's awesome.
Because I was you know what? I can't believe we're fighting Nazis in 2024.
Right.
But we're fighting Nazis in 2024. So it was obvious who we had to do there.
Dude, that's awesome. That's
a great
great
one. Yeah.
That's great. Well,
and if you come tonight. Oh, they're fighting Nazis. Chris gets to draw Hitler. And it's basically in the script, it says Jesse gives Hitler a look that's basically the middle finger, and it's just And the thing you got to get right is like all the books and the movies, they all get it wrong. Like they all make it like, Hitler turned away. He didn't turn away.
Right.
He didn't do any of that stuff. They stare each other down, but it's a moment. It's a moment. And you'll see, I won't ruin it, but the guy who's like with Jesse Owens at the race, I mean, it's an amazing story. Because, to me, sports at its best is not about the win or lose, but it's about character. Right. That's what sports brings out the best of us in. And this book is all about character.
Okay, so, and now where are we on novels?
Trying to finish a draft of the new Zig and Nola right now. I got to finish that. And then
I feel like we've taken a while.
It's been a while, I know, and it's because we did the Nazi conspiracy. The secret plot to kill FDR and Stalin and Churchill came out in paperback 2 days ago. But we're working on another one in that series as well.
Right. By the way, that's another. I mean, you talk about gifts; those things are great.
I love doing
those. You should write history books.
No, I love those.
Those are so. Are you doing another one?
Yeah, we're doing another. Josh Mensch and I are doing another one right now. So that may even come first because we're further along with that than
the novel.
Well, the novel.
Jesus, Brad.
I know,
seriously.
The thing is that
we'll be doing the 20th anniversary of kids'
I know,
books.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, the novels are hard. They're because it's a blank page. Like when I do Jesse Owens, I'm like, what happens next? I wonder what happens next. Oh, let me just look at Jesse Owens' life, and it will tell me what happens next. So I don't have to plot anything. I just do the research. Like the novel, I'm looking at a blank page.
Right.
What is Zig and Nola doing? I have no idea what they're doing now. I have to make something up right now. So that's just so much harder, and the level of difficulty is harder. But the reward, of course, is the bigger payoff.
And then but there is another like a Nazi conspiracy.
Yes,
or the
another one. The next one will be yes. We'll do that. And then
is it good? Is it good?
It's good.
Is it good?
I'll tell you off the air what it is. It's good.
Oh, I'm afraid to.
Oh no, you always tell me not to. I know. You always
because
tell me not to.
I'll blab it out.
and then the other thing that's coming is next week is season 2 of Xavier Riddle in the Secret Museum, the cartoon show. Starts Monday, and we are doing Ruth Bader Ginsburg on it. It's gonna be the nerdiest season because we're doing Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, who created Superman. We're doing Christopher Reeve. I wonder who came up with these guys. And then, but the best one we're doing that you're going to appreciate is we're doing Grandmaster Flash.
Are you really?
And it is. And what's so good is like when we do Michelangelo, they're like, we're going back in time to meet Michelangelo back to whenever he lived, like so long ago. And this one they go, we're going way back in time to 1974. And I'm just like, I was alive back then. Like I'm changing the script to say like, it's not that long ago. Like I'm just like kind of a little bit ago. But it's a great episode. Grandmaster Flash is coming on Xavier Riddle. It's good.
And that'll start on Monday. More importantly, I Am Ruth Bader Ginsburg, out and available now. Great job. The book is fantastic. Brad will be there tonight. Chris Eliopoulos will be there tonight. Linda Carter will be there tonight. Barnes & Noble at Tyson's Corner Center. It starts at 6 o'clock. Dude, thank you for coming in.
Love you.